Welcome back. Today I'm playing Warhammer 40,000 Gladius, and I'm making a guide about how to play as the Space Marines here. If you've been watching my channel, you'll know that this is my favorite faction to play on this game because they're just very easy to use. They seem to have a good flow, and there's not too much micro-intensive tasks that are on compared to some of the other factions that are in this game. So it just feels very strong, and all their units are very strong, so they really get the embodiment of the Space Marines in this game using this faction here. So going through this guide is assuming you're going to be playing on the impossible difficulty, but obviously everything I say will be applicable to the easier difficulties as well, since this strategy would work on the impossible difficulty. If you're playing multiplayer, you'll have to deviate a bit from what I'm recommending here, but because it's mainly focused against the AI, it will allow you to do the quest victories and also the what I call the conquest victories, which are when you kill every other faction that's on the map to allow you to get a different story ending, because there's one ending in the game for the quest victory and one for the total conquest victory. So if you're just trying to get both victories there, that's how you would do it. So looking over the Space Marines here, it does state that the initial challenge is easy, and I definitely think that's correct. They have some of the most powerful units in the game, and they can definitely expand very well. The other thing that helps them expand is the fact that you'll get something called a Fortress of Redemption, and then depending on the game speed, that'll determine how often you can deploy those. But effectively, it's a fortification that you'll deploy next to an outpost, which are the resource nodes. It'll capture it and allow you to get all the benefits of that resource node, plus it'll have the fortress itself will have weapons, so you can deploy that early on into the middle of a bunch of neutral creatures to help you get kills of higher units that may have more armor, such as the robots or the enslavers, things like that, to really help you push hard. You also have what's called the Fortress City, and how that works is effectively you only have access to one city for the whole game, but you will have access to these Fortress of Redemption to help you get those resources, because otherwise, as you can imagine, just having a single city could be detrimental. Now, likewise, because you only have a single city, if you have a start to the mission where you have a bunch of impassable terrain or water, things like that around the city, you may want to just restart and generate another map, because you're going to want to be able to expand as much as possible from that single city, so you're not kneecapping yourself. Now, because you will only have access to a single city, they actually change your resource generation. So when you're playing this faction, food is no longer a thing, and instead it's just ore is replaced as your main resource, and then you'll still have energy, influence, research, those things, but you no longer have to worry about the food resource with this faction. They also have the battle barge operations, which are effectively tactical doctrines. The battle barge operations are special abilities that you'll have access to that allow you to do things called orbital scans, which will allow you to scan different areas of the battlefield to give you vision, and also to later on use an orbital bombardment, which can either be used through your commander, your captain, because his level 6 abilities to do it, and then you'll have a general orbital bombardment that you can use from your special abilities. And then finally, you'll have chapter tactics, and these are unit specific boosts that you'll get. Some will help you boost bolter weapons, assault troopers, other things like that, so it really helps you go quite quickly to get everything moving. So as you can see, not an overly complicated faction, but still a fun one to play. So I'll load a video here of one of my playthroughs here and kind of go through each of the different tactics. I think it's just easier to show with the actual units than it is to explain it. So give me a second. Okay, and here is a playthrough with my Space Marines. Now, I did not put this on the impossible difficulty. That's why I've been able to capture so much of the map here within 64 turns. So this is not on the impossible difficulty, but I just wanted to get a bunch of the research set up to kind of go through different options and show off the different forces that I'm going to recommend and review here for you. So going through with your research, if you were trying to get kind of the maximum amount of get through here the most efficient way to help you survive on the impossible difficulty, what I'd recommend is focusing on the armory, which will allow you to generate vehicles, and then also get the reclusium up, because you're going to want to generate your force commander, which is your default hero, as fast as possible, so you can start getting him leveled. Because as you get him leveled, one of his abilities is for every unit that dies around him, it'll generate influence, and this is going to be a very influence heavy faction, and that's how you're going to be able to generate the most influence that you can do, so you can get your HQ, your commanders and heroes kitted out as fast as possible, because then they become complete they just become complete destroyers and big tanks that'll really help you. So rush those, and you'll need to get at least 2 technologies per tier to unlock the next tier. And so when you get to tier 2, if you're having issues expanding very quickly, and or you know that there's a lot of neutrals around you and not another faction that's going to be locking you in, then you're going to want to get your land speeders going, because you can use these to effectively push and conquer most of the map until you run into another faction. Then they're going to definitely kind of hit a wall and not be super effective. But what's nice is, because it's a hover vehicle, it can traverse difficult terrain, and that will also allow it to have a pretty significant move distance, so then you can run it back to your base or the outpost to heal up pretty effectively. So that's nice. You'll obviously want to be getting your dormitories going, because you'll likely at this point in time be having issues with your population growth getting close to the maximum, so you'll want to get those out. And then if you are doing very successful creeping, you may want to get a chaplain unlocked as well, because you'll want to get him leveling as well. So first you'll want to get 1 or 2 commanders out for your influence gains, and then you'll want to start getting some chaplains. And the reason for that is the chaplains are healers for this campaign, but more importantly, once they get to level 6, they'll start to give you loyalty boosts to all your cities, and that'll help generate resources quicker, especially on your main city, because it's going to be expanding and become very big. And so getting all those loyalty buffs will definitely help you while you're expanding. So now, whether you do that right away now, or if you don't have enough resources, you may push to tier 3, but pretty quickly you're going to want to start unlocking your chaplains. So once you get to tier 3, you're likely going to need to get your loyalty up, so you'll likely want to focus on the company chapel first, and then by now you should be getting close to fully expanding out your cities, so you're likely going to want to get your fortress expansion going to get that. Now, I have the librarian unlocked, but he's actually one of the worst heroes for the Space Marine, so I would recommend skipping him until very late game, when you can actually utilize him to start using his force barrier to give you defensive bonuses, but just skip past him. So those would be the 2 I'd recommend pushing real quickly. Now you get to tier 4, you're going to want to focus on the orbital relay, so you can get that constructed as fast as possible, so you can drop the amount of time it takes for your buildings to be constructed. So for example, if a building takes 4 turns, you create one of these, it'll be 2 turns, and you create a second one, it'll drop it down to 1 turn. The turn limits for construction times are tied directly to the game speed that you have on. So I like to play on very fast speed, so it usually takes 1 to 2 orbital relays to get down to 1 turn construction, but if you're playing on a slower setting, you may need to have more of those, but definitely you want to rush that. And then by now I'll typically want to get the Kraken bolts going, so I can start increasing the damage and armor piercing abilities from my bolt weapons, because most of your units by now are going to be using the Kraken bolts, whether you're still pushing with your double Space Marines, which are going to be very tanky and help you push early on, or if you're starting to get these land speeders, because they're going to have bolter weapons, and the Kraken bolts will help them. Moving on to tier 5, I'll usually get the apothecaries unlocked. That way I can have an infantry unit that can start healing my heroes as they're moving across the map, and also if my Space Marines are still alive while they're pushing and helping me creep, then these guys will be able to help heal as well. And then I also tend to focus on getting the advanced readouts, which will help you get another tile acquisition. However, if you're not needing that, you may instead want to get the extra infantry armor, so your heroes and Space Marine tactical marines will be having more armor and therefore increased survivability. Moving on to tier 6, if you're getting lots of land speeders out and you're needing a repair crew to help with your repairs, then you'll want to push the thunder cannon here, because this will allow you to start repairing vehicles and also clear out wire weeds, so that can be very helpful early on. Now again, you can start to unload or start to unlock your bolter, your tactics here. So you may want to get the bolter drill again, because this will increase the damage and accuracy, because accuracy ties into damage in this game of anything that use a bolt weapon, and that'll be both your tactical marines and your land speeders, so that will help them. If you're not having a bunch of land speeders running around the map right now, then you're likely going to want to go with the close combat mastery, because that'll increase the armor penetration of your melee weapons, and you're going to be using that for your heroes, and definitely when you start getting melee units out. That will allow you to get to tier 7. So if you have a bunch of land speeders, you're going to want to be unlocking the multi-melta, because this will now allow them to have amazing anti-armor damage in addition to all their bolter weapons. So that, because by now you'll find that the land speeders are really kind of not performing very well, whereas early on they're just helping you clear the whole map out. But if there's anything with armor, they're going to start to struggle, so this will allow them to all of a sudden start doing good anti-armor damage. Now if you've been able to expand far enough that you are having difficulty getting your guys into combat, you may want to unlock the orbital deployment. And what this will do is allow you, with any unit that's within a base, to click it, and for the cost of influence you can then deploy them anywhere on the map that you have vision, so that will allow you to rapidly deploy your forces. If you are not having difficulty expanding, or if you're just blocked in by your opponents by now, you'll instead either want to go with the launch pads to help you get aircraft technology unlocked, because you're going to want to be using the aircraft with the Space Marines, or if you're getting ready to start doing a bunch of vehicle pushes, you'll get the extra vehicle armor. So it kind of depends on, if you have lots of ore and energy, then you may want the launch pad. If you just have ore going, then you want to get the extra vehicle armor. If you're really getting pushed into a corner and you're getting close to losing, you're likely going to want to just unlock the Terminators, so they can help act as a wall, because they're a very powerful unit. But if you're not being pushed into a corner, then just skip this technology and wait till the tier 8, because you'll now get access to Devastator Centurions, and then these are the most powerful ranged units that you'll have in the game. And in fact, I think they're one of the most powerful faction or range damage dealers in the entire game for any faction. And the reason for that is later on you're going to get access to technology that allows them to mitigate any sort of damage reduction that your opponents will have, and that'll allow them to always hit for maximum damage. And then you'll either have to decide if you're unlikely to have a fortress city so large that you need to get the 4th tile unlocked by now, but if for whatever reason you are, you'll want to get that going. I tend to go with the improved frag casing at this point in time to help me increase the armor penetration of my weapons, because by now I'm going to start building my army that's going to be helping me for the rest of the game here. Alternatively, if you do have a lot of infantry going, then you may want to get the Flesh is Weak doctrine, which will increase the damage reduction of all of your infantry that are on the field. Another good option is the Fortress Redemption Heavy Bolters if you're finding that they're getting attacked a lot, because this will allow you to double the attacks that they have. But again, you really hopefully should not be getting your Fortresses Redemptions under getting killed, so most likely you're going to want these 2 doctrine to help you get to tier 9. Now tier 9, you're finally going to get access to your Land Raiders, and this is going to be your most dangerous and damage dealing and most useful vehicle that you're going to have in the game here. So you're going to want to get those unlocked and start pumping them out as fast as possible. And then this will also help your infantry move around, because it is a transport vehicle, so you can then move your infantry inside there to help them move quicker. The Omniscope is the weapon the upgrade I was describing that allows you to bypass the range damage, so it allows you to easily kill vehicles or aircraft or other units that have range reduction. So if you're getting pushed by a lot of vehicles, you may want to push that. Otherwise, you're likely going to want to get the Hotshot Power Pack, because your Devastator Centurions and your Land Raiders and other vehicles are going to need to have that increased damage. Alternatively, if you have a pretty large land speeder army going, but they're suffering a lot of damage, you may want to get the Machine Empathy. Or if you've unlocked the aircraft on the prior technology, you want to get the Storm Raven gunship, because this is going to be the aircraft that you're going to want to be pumping out for most of the game, because it's very durable, it has good damage, and it's also an airborne transport vehicle. So again, it's going to help you move your guys throughout the map, so very helpful. And then you finally get up to tier 10. What you're going to want to do is unlock the Siege Masters, because that's going to increase the amount of damage you do to cities and fortifications, helping you take out your opponent. And then I like to focus on the Hurricane Bolter, assuming you're building the aircraft out here, because that'll double their attacks by giving them ×2 Hurricane Bolters. And then I also like to get the locator beacon going, because what this effectively does is it'll allow you to start using your orbital deployment, and as long as you put it one square next to a Storm Raven gunship, which is what you should be using here, it'll then allow those units that have been deployed by the orbital deployment to not use up their action. Because usually what happens is when you use the orbital deployment, they get deployed and they don't have the possibility to attack on that turn that they're deployed. But if you have the locator beacon and you put it next to either a scout bike, which I tend to skip that tech, or a Storm Raven gunship, then they'll retain that action point, and then you can start attacking on that very first turn as well. So definitely very nice technology. Then as you've made your way through the technology tree, you have to decide, are you having more Centurions alive? Then you're going to want to focus on the Centurion upgrades, or if you're getting the vehicles, you'll want to go back and start getting your vehicle upgrades. The other thing that can be kind of nice, if you've made it so far down the research tree that the orbital scan is free, you may want to unlock that, because that'll allow you to reveal tiles randomly on the map that you select to let you get vision. So that'll help you get an idea of where the enemy cities are if you are starting to siege. I tend to not get the tactical doctrine, because I just never have enough tactical space marines to make it worthwhile, but I did unlock it just to show the doctrine. You'll certainly want to have unlocked your chaplains by now if you haven't. At this point in time, I'll go back and unlock the librarian, because I will likely have enough influence by now that I can start pumping out some heroes, and then I'll want to use him to get his buffs to help with damage reductions. I'll go back and get the Devastator Doctrine, because that'll increase the accuracy of my Devastator Centurions, which I'm going to be pumping out by now, and I want to get that damage kitted out and get it maximized. I'll get the extra infantry armor if I haven't unlocked that yet. If I have extra influence just burning a hole in my pocket, I'll get the orbital strike, which is the orbital bombardment, and then I'll get the stronghold shielding, which will increase the damage reduction that the Fortress of Redemptions will have as just a passive trait to make them harder to kill. And as you can see, these are kind of the ones I focus on here. Definitely will want to get the extra vehicle armor if you haven't gotten that yet. Same with the smoke launcher. Effectively, it allows your Rhino transports to pop smoke, and that gives it a range damage reduction as long as you stay on that tile, and it usually lasts for 2 to 3 turns, so that's very nice. It can also be good to get the bolster the defenses here, and that allows your thunder fire cannons to now put a range damage reduction tile on the ground, and so usually I'll put that on forces. If I'm sieging down a big city and struggling, I'll put that down, and that'll help increase the damage reduction that the units will be taking, helping me not only body block the point around the city to help me siege it down and get some kills, but also increase my survivability. And then again, I'll be focusing on getting the additional heavy bolters if I haven't unlocked those. The flesh is weak to get the damage reduction to my infantry, things to help increase my damage.
And then going to tier 9, again, you'll want to get the ceramite plating if you haven't already, because that'll increase the armor of your aircraft, getting the machine empathy if you have lots of vehicles to start restoring H points every turn. You can also get the teleport Homer, and what this effectively does is it makes it so orbital deployment does not consume the action points when deploying the chaplain, your terminators, when you're next to a tactical marine or a scout. I tend to skip this because I'm not making tactical marines late game, and I'm not making scouts late game late game either, so it tends to be a wasted research for me. But if you do have a lot of tactical marines, or you're playing a multiplayer match where you have a lot of them, or you have a lot of scouts out there, then it can be useful, but I tend to just skip this. And then again, always getting that omniscope is nice, so you can bypass the range resistance. And then finally, I will go back and get the Fortress of Redemption missile silo, which gives you a long range, high damage, armor penetration missile strike from your Fortress of Redemption, and unlock the Aquila macro cannon, which is effectively a massive fortification that you can just randomly deploy around the map. And it has a surprising amount of health, so you can deploy it to help you hold ground, or deploy it around the outskirts of an enemy base to soak up fire and also do damage. Some people like to do a rush with the Fortress of Redemption and deploy those onto enemy bases too to do pretty good damage, especially after you've gotten all this tech unlocked. But I tend to go just focusing on the resources. And then finally, you can also get a hunter-killer missile unlock, and what that effectively does is give you an incredibly long-range missile. So if you have a bunch of land raiders that can't get into range to attack anybody, chances are you can just send the hunter-killer missile out and do additional damage at very long ranges here. So going through our operations and tactics, these are the abilities that you'll have access to. So you'll only deploy one city, and so you'll have to decide where you want to deploy it at the start of the first turn here. Some people will wait to a second turn, but then you're a whole turn behind, so I just deploy it on my first turn, and that'll be what starts your city here. These Fortresses of Redemption are the fortifications that allow you to capture resources and hold ground. So again, this will have a 5-turn cooldown because I'm playing on the very fast pace. Different paces will have different cooldown turns, but you'll effectively just click and deploy it. So you can see it costs 120 influence for me to deploy it, and it has 2 upkeep. So you'll just click it, and then anywhere you can see any of these outposts, you can see what kind of benefits they'll be giving you here. So what I tend to do is early on, I tend to focus on getting the research up, because then I'll have a 20% research and a +2 to my research generation here, which is nice because you'll get the full bonuses when you are using the Fortress of Redemption, just like if you capture it with the city. And then late game, I tend to need to focus more on the ore production, so I'll do something like this where it's, you know, +20% +2. So you just click it, you deploy it down, and now it'll lock down this resource node. So even if an enemy were to move over here and try to capture it from you, they won't be able to until they've taken out this Fortress of Redemption. And you can see it starts out with the twin-linked las cannon, which gives you 10.4 damage at an armor piercing of 7, so that really helps you with pushing early on. And it also has a range of 3. Then as you unlock that missile silo, it gives you a range 4 attack, and then the double heavy bolters has a range of 2. So it really allows these guys to hold the ground very well for you. And each one you do deploy does increase the cost of the future one. So again, it shows the importance of really getting as much of that influence going as you can as fast as possible. Likewise, deploying the Aquila macro cannon is very similar. You would just click, and then anywhere on the map that you can see, you can end up deploying one. So we'll just deploy one next to the city here, assuming I wanted to siege, because they have a range 2 heavy bolter here, and then they also have the macro Aquila cannon, which allows them to do 15.6 damage with 2 attacks, armor piercing of 11, so it allows it to effectively just destroy things that it's attacking. So if people are pushing you, you can just use these to harry the base, especially because it goes out to a range of 5, so you can be back pretty far in attack. Now I just deployed it next to there just to show an example. Now the orbital scan is something you can do effectively every turn, and again it'll just let you get vision. So it's like we can see there's a city over here, so let's just orbital scan here, and now we can see there's the city. So if you had a bunch of hunter killer missiles or other units that you wanted to attack into the city, you can now move in there. You can also move your forces in more effectively, because if there's multiple unexplored squares, your units will only go into the first one adjacent to that to give you vision, so it slows your progress. But if I had a bunch of vehicles here that were ready to be attacking, I could now drive in here and start getting vision. So with these doctrines here, they typically last for 10 turns. So you can see the tactical doctrine increases the accuracy of tactical space marines by 2. The devastator lasts for 10 turns, and you just click it. It costs 20 influence, and that will increase the accuracy of all my either Devastator Space Marines, which I don't use, or my Devastator Centurions, which I definitely use, for 10 turns plus 2 accuracy. Same thing with the Bolter Drill plus 2 ranged accuracy for all bolt weapons. So you just click that and get it going. If you wanted to do, and all these things will stack, so then you can do the Flesh is Weak as well. So again, we'll just click that. That costs 40 influence, and now all of my infantry have a 17% damage reduction. And if I want my vehicles to start healing 3 HP every turn for 10 turns, and you just click the machine empathy and pay 40 influence there, and now my vehicles will be healing for 3 HP for 10 turns. And then the siege masters here cost an additional 40, and that allows you to do an additional 33% damage to to cities and fortifications, allowing you to help get past their damage reduction. So that can be very, very powerful to help you get your units going and just going across the map and getting kills as fast as possible here. So your fortress city here, once you've unlocked all your acquisition tiles, you can go all the way out to 4 tiles for the maximum distance here. So that makes the Space Marine city the largest city in the game. Now you have to be very careful though as you're playing the Space Marines, because you only have that one city. So if your opponents are attacking you and they wipe out your city, you just lose. So you got to be very, very cautious. And likewise, because you're going out those 4 tiles, you want to make sure you have 4 tiles to expand to. If there's big water areas here, then that's effectively permanently reducing your city's ability to generate resources, which is what you're going to need to help you push real aggressively here. Now, in terms of your heroes here, again, you're going to want to get your captains out as fast as possible, and you want to focus on upgrading the deeds of glory as fast as possible as well. So whenever you're killing units, you'll see that guys will be getting influence, and it's practically you'll get 6 influence per experience that you're gaining here. So again, getting this going crazy, getting this leveled up as fast as possible, getting lots of kills around there, because remember, any unit within 2 or 3 tiles of a unit getting killed is going to be getting experience. So as long as your force commander is near a bunch of other units that are getting kills, you're effectively just going to keep generating all this influence, which is what you're going to need to help spam these abilities like crazy, and to get your heroes kitted out with the best equipment, because you're going to want them to be close to the combat to generating the influence in this situation. So I tend to go with Deeds of Glory. Then if he's suffering a lot of damage and I don't have enough to really armor him up and make him a tank, then I'll get the Healing Surge, which allows him to heal himself. If he's not taking big amounts of damage, or I've been able to rush my Apothecaries, which are able to heal him, then I'll start getting the Power Strike instead, which will give him a more powerful attack that also has good armor piercing. So you can see he does 150% of the damage there with decent armor piercing. And then again at level 6 he gets access to the orbital strike, which will allow him to call down an orbital strike. I don't remember what the range of it is, but it's an okay ability. Again, it's a cheaper version of the orbital strike. Actually, did I not upgrade the orbital strike? I guess I never upgraded the orbital strike, but that would be another thing that would be on your icon here for you to just use and attack a different location that you have visible. You don't need to be within a certain range. It's pretty much anywhere that's visible you'd be able to call down the orbital bombardment or the orbital strike, whereas this is like a weaker version of it, but you have to be near your Space Marine captain here. So we'll just move them up to here, and now you can see I can summon the orbital strike on there. So that's what that would do, and it would allow you to attack. So the big thing with him, though, is for the equipment is I want to make him as tanky as possible, because you can see he's got 13 armor here, and I want to bring that up as high as possible. So even when I'm fighting opponents that have very high armor piercing, he won't be able to kill the captain. So you can use him to tank a bunch of shots, do decent damage once you have him kitted out, and you can use him to self-heal or heal him with the apothecaries. But because of that, I end up getting the bracers and the weave, because that'll give him +3 armor. I tend to give him the Zote Hide Jerkin here, so that way he has 100% healing rate and also has 3 additional hit points. I give him the Duskblade because he is definitely going to be fighting in melee, and so getting that 20% lifesteal is very helpful. Because there is the possibility of overextending him, I tend to give him the Felshen's Wing here to help him move around the battlefield to get into the action, to help me generate all that influence, and likewise pull him back if he's overextended. And then I give him the Morning Blade of Lazaric, so he has that 2 armor piercing and additional 25% damage. So that's how I tend to build out my captains here. Likewise with the chaplains, I have a very similar build, but as you can see, he has a free action where it increases the damage of the chaplain and every unit within 1 tile around him. So if you're going to start attacking units, you want to use this right away to help buff everybody. If you're starting to have a lot of guys die and your morale's getting lost, then you can use the Canticles of Wrath, and so this will either increase the morale of any allied unit that's within 1 tile, and if there's any adjacent enemy units within 1 tile, to lower their morale, helping you do additional damage. Your special ability here is getting the loyalty up, so as you can see, each chaplain at the highest level of his Dogma Astartes will increase your city's loyalty by 12. And then his ultimate ability is the Oration of the Restoration, and that'll allow him to heal 6 HP to everything that's within 1 tile of him. So that'll help you keep your vehicles alive, your infantry, give them an AoE heal, which is very nice. But really your main healers are going to be your apothecaries here, which will be able to heal any sort of infantry 8 HP, and then you will have your Thunder Cannon with your Blessings of the Omnissiah to give 8 HP heals to your vehicles. And then for the same reasoning of the captain here, he'll have the same kind of equipment. So he'll have weapons to help him get some lifesteal, increased armor penetration and damage, and increased survivability, so he can stay in the thick of it, restoring morale, buffing damage, and healing. And then the final hero that you'll have access to through the Space Marines is the Librarian. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the Librarian myself, as you can probably guess from my description of him through the research that I tend to skip, but he does have some uses. The big thing is he has an 18 hit point damage ability, and he also will add on a self-damage debuff onto whatever unit he utilizes this ability on, and so anytime they attack, they'll suffer 5% of their health. So what I like to do is, if there's a very powerful vehicle, I will put this on the ability. I'll put this ability on them doing 18 damage, which is a decent amount of damage, and then if they keep attacking me, they'll get that 5% damage attack. Or this also can get applied to cities, so this will help you quickly attack cities from longer range. If you get surrounded by low tier infantry, you can use the shockwave attack. Now, it has no armor piercing, so it's very terrible against killing vehicles, but really good against infantry, and effectively it'll do damage to any enemy unit that's within 1 square of you. You also have access to the Levitate ability, which helps you get him out of danger or pass impassable terrain. And then his ultimate ability is the Telekinetic Dome, and then this is what makes him useful later in the game. Is you just click this button, and now anything that's within 1 tile of him, now he can move out of this distance. This dome will just stay in this location whether he's here or not. but anything that's inside that dome will now get a 50% damage reduction from ranged attacks. And like I said, it will stick around whether he's there or not. So that can be very helpful for you to, while you're sieging a base or getting attacked by units at range, to increase their survivability. So because he's a little squishy, I do tend to get him Felshen's Wing to help him move around the battlefield without difficulty. I gave him the Duskblade to help with some healing. Again, the armor and the Zocoat for the same reasons. And then I also tend to give him the ultra wideband Auspex so he just doesn't get sniped by Overwatch attacks while I'm trying to move him around the battlefield to help him spam those telekinetic domes, move into the center of low tier infantry to just annihilate them, or to put on a major debuff and damage to a vehicle or a city. Now, moving on to the units that I like to use is obviously the heroes for the reasons we've already discussed, but the apothecaries, because they are able to heal. Now, they have a very weak attack. They can defend themselves, but for the most part, you're either going to want to use them to heal your other units, heal themselves to tank up attacks, or to just run around and capture points while your stronger army is fighting. You know, the Thunder Cannon does have decent attacks. You know, it has range 3, range 1, and range 1 attack. So if it gets into close quarters combat, it can defend himself, but it can easily be killed as well. So you don't typically want to use him as a fighter. Again, he's going to be your vehicle healer, or more importantly, you can use the clear tile ability and clear out the wireweed that may be in the way of your city. I like to use the Centurions here because they have range 3 attacks, so they can do full damage at range 3. And again, if you wanted to use the Omniscope, it is a free action, and it gives you 100% range damage bypass for 1 turn. You can switch their weapons. I tend to just keep them on the crack grenades, so that way I don't forget to turn them back. But if you are fighting infantry, you can switch them to the frag missile launcher to help you kill infantry with these guys. But I have so many other units that are typically fighting that I tend to just use them as the crack missile launcher and focus there. Now, if you wanted to see the orbital deployment, you can see it costs 20 influence. So again, these are very influence heavy faction, and you can then deploy anywhere you have vision. And if you deploy him within 1 tile of that Storm Raven, while he doesn't have any movement, he still has his attack. So if somebody were to move out of the city, he would get an Overwatch attack. Or if you orbitally deploy one of your heroes, you can put them right onto an outpost on the first turn and then start buying equipment and get them kitted out, so the following turn they can start wreaking havoc. The Storm Raven gunship, like we talked about, is a very powerful transport that has good range because he is a vehicle. His optimal range is 2, so he's got the twin-linked assault cannons, the twin-linked heavy bolters, the twin-linked bolt guns, and then he also has a missile strike to help him do damage to take out not only infantry but also vehicles as well. So you'll typically use these guys to shoot down any infantry squads that are in your way, and use your Devastator Centurions to take down any heavily armored units that are in front of you. Likewise, I also use the Land Raider here. As you can see, it's got the twin-linked las cannons, a heavy bolter, and then the multi-melta here, so its ideal range is 2. And if you're fighting powerful units, you'll want to use the Power of the Machine Spirit buff, which will increase their accuracy by 2 as well, and it lasts for 1 turn. And then you can't orbitally deploy vehicles, obviously, but you can orbitally deploy both infantry and vehicles here. So you can also deploy the vehicle around the map if you wanted to. And like I said, you could use regular Terminators. They're definitely good, but I tend to find that I'm using my Land Raiders and my Storm Ravens in addition to my heroes to act as tanks, and then just keeping my Devastator Centurions in the back, so I tend not to need them to fight in melee for me. Now, if you really are struggling a lot and you really do need a melee force to soak up attacks, you can use the Assault Terminators, because these guys are melee only, whereas the Terminators do have a ranged attack with their storm bolters, which can make them actually decent to fight at range as well, but you'll typically want them to be in melee. But if you want to do a full melee variant that has good damage reduction, then you can do assault terminators instead. But again, I tend not to use them because this kind of build I think just works most efficiently. And then as you can see, I have a very land speeder heavy army. Once I've gotten land raiders and things unlocked, I will no longer be purchasing these, but you can see how much movement they have. And then they have both the multi-melta and the heavy bolters at range 2 attack, so you can just move these guys around the battlefield very easily and help you do quite a bit of damage. So as you can see, they would do 20 damage against the city here, which is actually pretty significant. Or you can use them just to focus down infantry while you're getting the rest of your guys in there to fight. So they can be very decent to help you get some attacks and kills. So and then again, these are transports, so you can sit there and run your guys around, transport them, and get them out, and then likewise put injured guys in here to help pull them back to increase their survivability. So very, very nice indeed. Okay, and with that, I think that's really all I have to say about the Space Marines. This is one of the quicker videos, but that's because this faction is pretty basic and doesn't really take a lot to a lot of in-depth abilities and things. So again, it makes it so it's very enjoyable, and it just feels good to play as them, as you can see. So now he got 24 influence for the experience that he got with that city getting taken down around him. And then even as he's max level, he'll still get the experience, but he just won't level up any further, and you'll still be generating that influence with the kills here. So that definitely helps us, because I mean that 20 is enough to use some of these basic doctrines, or half of what we need for some of the stronger ones here. So it definitely allows you to generate a lot, and that's why you typically want to get several of these captains out on the field, so you can have multiple ones generating the influence. Because if I had 3 of them here, all 3 of them would have been generating 24 influence there. So it's not like one captain's there and gets that experience and influence that the other ones don't. It stacks depending on how many you have nearby, and that's how you can really pop off like crazy with the influence here. So if there's anything I didn't say about the Space Marines that you think is very helpful for newer players, please comment below in the comments. I do have the Primaris unlocked. I tend to not think they're particularly very good. If I was playing on multiplayer, though, I definitely would use them, because these Primaris intercessors are effectively, because what happens is the Primaris units are effectively just better variations of your standard infantry. So these Primaris intercessors have effectively double the health of your basic tactical Marines, so it allows them to do significant damage. And the Hellblasters are effectively increased HP devastators, but they want to be at a closer range and use their overcharge ability. If you want to see the Primaris units, I do have a Primaris playthrough, and then the last 2 episodes of that series I really go through and compare the basic Space Marine units to the Primaris variations and kind of give my 2 cents on it. But for these kind of matches, and with how strong the Space Marines are with the other DLC units and other things that are unlocked, I just find that there's no need to use them. So for me personally, I would skip that DLC, because there's not a lot for that I utilize it for. But if you're playing multiplayer, I think it becomes extremely overpowered, because the Space Marines can be a very hard faction to play on multiplayer as well. And then the other thing I'd mention is, you are playing multiplayer, just remember, once you get that orbital deployment, you can have a bunch of guys at your base, especially if you're playing another Space Marine player. Once you see the enemy base, you can then start deploying those Aquila macro cannons nearby to siege it down, and then you can start deploying a bunch of your forces right next to his base and quickly snipe down the city to get the kill. So that can be a very, very powerful tactic to use against another Space Marine player, especially if they've traveled across the map to get to you and you have all your guys at a city. You can then counter deploy once you move a little land speeder to get vision on areas near a base, and then just start deploying guys literally right on top of a city and get some kills. So that can be very, very devastating. So thanks for watching. I hope you're enjoying these videos. If you are, please give my channel a like and subscribe. Encourage me to post more content for you. Have a great day.